Today's fountain pen for service is a Conway Stewart number 16. Very pretty dark and light blue marble. Slight scratch on the cap, but we'll be able to remove that. Little bit of marking on the barrel down here. We'll polish that out. There's the imprint, not very easy to see. Alright, we'll open that up. That's the nib, Conway Stewart, 14 carat gold. Seems to be in relatively good nick. I'll try to see whether the section comes out easily. No, it doesn't particularly. So I'll put it into the ultrasonic for a minute and see if we can loosen it up a little bit. You can see there's ink coming out of the feed and out of the nib, but it's the thread at the top that we want to loosen. Right, I'll try that. See how it goes. Wipe that off. See if it's easier to remove the section now. Another one of these. Yep, that's moving. Very gently undo it. There it goes. Right. With the remnants of the last sack on it. I'll scrape that off. Then I'll put the nib and the feed back into the ultrasonic for 3 minutes to clean it up. Then we'll look at the rest of the pen. Actually, I'll put it into the ultrasonic first. It might soften some of that up. In, turn him on. We'll have a look at the lift lever and see. That's pretty tight. Yes, it's jammed in there. We'll have to take the J-bar out. I can see pieces of the old sack still in there, right up to there, so it no doubt goes the full way down. I'll put the barrel in with the nib. We'll see if that'll loosen it off. Right, the ultrasonic's finished now. We'll take the parts out, put them on our clean cloth here. The nib and the feed and the section. And the barrel. Right, I'll scrape the remains of this old sack off with a razor blade, being very careful. It's certainly dramatically perished, that's for sure. That has been in there a long, long period of time. It's coming away alright though. Just hope we can get the rest of the sack out of the barrel quite as easily. That'll run round there. Now a bit of medium grade steel wool, give it a slight still bits there, not much but little bits along the bottom. I'll remove that. Away. Now we'll take the nib and feed out of the section with this block here. We'll see what size fits. That one. Right, let's line this up. Give a little tap. See if we can start to move it out. Still pretty tight. I'll give that a little tap. Yep, it's started to move, all right. I might have to use the thinner one. I don't like it, but I think I'll have to. Hold it straight over the top, then tap it out. It's moving. Just do very slowly. You can see it's moving in now. We'll continue that till we've removed it. Gentle taps so we don't do any damage. Here we go, moving along now. Still a bit tight, we'll still have to tap it out. There we go. There's the section. We'll clean that in a minute. There's our feed. We'll put that back into the ultrasonic. There's our nib. We'll put them back in. A little bit of ink on them. We'll put them back in for 3 minutes. With a clean piece of cloth, I'll wipe the feed. I'll clean those 2 channels out now. Got some 1 thou brass shim here that I'll run down the channels. They seem to be pretty clean. Right, I'll put that aside over there, over the back. Now our nib, we'll dry that off. There's our nib. I'll polish that later after I've burnished it flat and got the correct curve in it. put that over the back also. And the feed. Run this brush down the feed, back and forwards a couple of times. Clean it out. Pretty good nick actually. I'll remove the last little bit of the sack in there in a couple of places. Then we'll start to take the Perish sack out of the barrel. Last night I left the barrel of the fountain pen with some citrus oil in it, hoping it would loosen up some of the broken down sack that is still in there. So we're about to find out whether that works or not. I'm using a dental probe to very gently slide down the side of the sack and break it in little pieces, I hope, and moving it in towards the center. You don't want to put any pressure on the outside of the case because you'll most likely break it. Now the next part of the operation, this little tool that I made. I have one that's a bit larger that I use on larger pens, wyverns, etc. But this Conway Stewart, it has a thin barrel. So what I'm going to do is put it down inside it and use it to lift up the broken pieces of the sack that are now floating around down in the bottom. Being careful not to catch the J-bar. And it's a slow, tedious job now of cleaning the rest of this out. Once it's done, I'll put it back into the ultrasonic and clean it again. And then clean it out with a wire brush. It's coming out, but it's going to be a long, slow process. So I'll do some more of this off camera. Once I've got it cleaned out or near enough, I'll come back. Well, looks like I've got most of the old sack out. That came out in one piece, and all the other little bits and pieces on my cloth there. So run this tool around inside and pull it up. It's coming up pretty clean now. Right, now it's time to remove the J-bar. I'll put a light down in it so I can see where it is. Should be under there. There it is there. That is a tight one. Have to be careful not to break the side of the case. But the filling lever works now. Yes, that works well. Right, I'll put that into the ultrasonic. We'll clean it up and then we'll have another look at it. Right, the ultrasonic's finished now. You can see the stuff that's coming out of the barrel. It's been loosened off. Move that round. Right, I'll take that out. Pair of tweezers. I'll dry the barrel off. Have a look down inside with our flexible torch. That seems pretty clean actually. The J-bar's in good shape too. Oh, maybe we won't take it out. We'll have a look and see. We'll run our wire brush down now, being very careful because the J-bar's still in it. Winding it off the top. Little piece of sack coming up. He's gone. Check it again. I think I saw another little bit of sack in there. I did. There we go. Got rid of him. And now looks pretty good in there. Try the filling lever again. Nice smooth motion. Press the J-bar right down. I'll just check on top of that. Yep, very clean. All right. Put that down. Now, get rid of the ultrasonic and on to the next step. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to check the nib. Make sure it's got the correct angle on it. 14 karat gold nib. Right. I'll get our nib straightener block out. And one of our burnishes. We start off with the underside of the nib first. Hold that so we can see it. We slowly run the burnisher down the full length of the nib on the inside. What we're doing is we're slowly moving metal and removing any fine bumps or dents that are inside, on the inside of the nib. Now we'll put that on there. Change our burnisher. And slowly run the full length of the nib, being very careful not to put pressure on the tip that you write with, or you'll bend it. What we're doing here is checking to make sure that the angle of the nib is correct, and both tines are aligned equally. Right, I'll put that under the microscope, just check it. Put that in a little bit. Where's our tweezers? A little bit more. Now I can see it clearly. Yeah, those tines are pretty good. Yeah, all right. We'll pick the nib up, put it down. Put that over there. Now we're going to cut the sack to size. Now we'll cut the sack to the correct size. We need to allow about 5mm down at the base. When the sack gets pushed in, it doesn't get twisted. First thing I'll do is I'll drop a stick down in there and we'll measure the total depth and then mark it. Thickness of the pen is, that's the depth. Put that aside for a moment. Now we've got that. We need to put the section here and come back the distance where the sack sits on the section, which is there. Then we'll allow about another 5mm, which is the big line there. So that is where we're going to cut. Line that up. That's where we're going to cut the sack. Right there. There's our line. See where our line is, just there. That's our sack length. And there we have it. Last thing we'll do before we polish the nib, we'll take a piece of 1 thou brass sheeting, insert it into that little hole there and run it up between the tines like so. That will clear anything out that's caught in between the tines. Right, and now we'll polish it. We'll use a standard silver cleaning cloth for that. Rub it long ways. You can see it's starting to get a nice shine on it. Do the other end. Those marks that were on there have now gone. A little bit under the tines. And there we go. Now we're going to put the nib onto the feed. That is where we want the feed to sit there. Feed sits back here. The nib is going to write too wet, and if it's too close to the end of the tines, then it will write very fine. If we have a look on the feed, we'll see just there's a dot. That's where the nib fits correctly. So we'll align that like so. Roll it over. Check to make sure it's even. Hold it tightly. Press it back. Looks all right. Press it back into the section. So that it goes all the way in. That can go a fraction more. Not quite as far out there as it was when we tapped it out. Have a look at that under the magnifier. Yes, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to put the sack on the end of the section. It's a number 15 sack, because it's 15/64 of an inch. They're not easy to put on with gloves. I don't want it to go all the way, I just want to get it started. Okay, I'll do that off camera without my gloves, then I'll be back. There we go, a lot easier without my gloves on. You'll see that the sack is about halfway up that section of the section. So what we'll do now is we'll put a tiny little bit of shellac around the top piece here, both sides, and underneath. Put the lid on that again. Now remove the tweezers slowly, and then push the sack all the way up onto the section so it sits straight. Right, we'll give that a minute or two to dry, and then we'll come back and put some French chalk on it. If you haven't got French chalk, use talcum powder. Don't use baby powder or anything like that, because it has various oils in it that will rot away the sack. Now, while the shellac is drying, we'll remove the clip from the cap. It just unwinds, and we'll run over the clip with our silver cleaning cloth. See if that'll shine it up a little bit. You can see that shining up. Now, do the circle up here. And the edge of it. Because that will show once the cap is put back together again. Nice Conway Stewart imprint there on the clip. There's a little bit of scratching just from light use, no gouges or anything, but a little bit of light scratching. We'll run over the cap with some micromesh and put a nice shine on that now. There's our micromesh sheets, our 12,000. Put those aside. Wrap it round. Rub it very gently up and down the full length. Of the cap. You should give it a nice polish. Yep, you can see that's coming up rather nicely. We'll do the end bits in a moment. Now down this end. Very nice. Now the cap screw. That's not going to be easy to do because of the angle on it, but we'll give it a rub on the 12,000 mesh. Put the clip on. Hold that. Then once again, not easy with gloves, we'll put the cap on. Get the thread set properly and then tighten it up. Cap has come up rather nice. Look at the shine on that. Lovely. You'll notice there's two little holes. One there. One on the opposite side. which is now under the clip. But we always make sure that those holes are free and not clogged up. It will reduce condensation in the cap, and if they're clogged up when you're unscrewing the pen from the cap, it can cause ink to be vacuumed out of the nib. Right, we'll put that aside. Put the nib there. Now we'll run over the barrel with some 12,000. Got him. Open that up. Now before we run over the barrel with our 12,000 micromesh, there's a little bit of pitting down there, just there, that we want to remove. So there's two things we've got to do. We've got to cover the lever filler so we don't rub it, and we also have to cover the imprint down here with some tape so that we don't destroy the imprint. So I'll get those cut and put on, and then we'll start using the 12,000 micromesh paper to polish the barrel. There you can see I've covered the lever fill and the imprint with some tape. Now we can run the 12,000 micromesh over the top of the pen. Just very lightly, it takes almost no pressure. Turn it round. To the other end. Have a look at that rough spot that was tiny little bit still there. Right, we'll do a bit of work on that. You see the shine that's coming up on the barrel of the pen. Good, that's looking all right. That aside. Now we'll take off the tape once we can get underneath it. First one. Second. The shellac is now dry, so we'll put the feed there. And the sack back into the barrel of the pen. So get rid of that. Now the shot is to put a little bit of French chalk if you've got some ground up. If not, use talcum powder and put just a slight wipe over the top so that it slides into the pen and doesn't catch on anything, the J bar or anything else inside. Don't use baby powder because it has oil in it and scents, and it will dissolve the sack. So we'll insert that slowly down, making sure that we've gone under the filler. Push it in. There we have it. Put the cap on. And there's our finished product, waiting to be inked. The last thing we do before we ink the pen and test the nib is we'll take a Chinagraph pencil. I'll use a white one, and we'll carefully run it over the top of the insert. With the lead from the Chinagraph pencil. And that's done. We'll then wipe it off. You'll see how clearly the imprint stands out now. Conway Stewart, 16, made in England. Now we'll ink the pen and we'll test the nib to make sure it writes correctly. Do that. I'm still waiting for my bottle of Noodlers, 54 Massachusetts, to arrive. So in the meantime, I'll use my sample. Got the lever fill open. Put it into the sample. We'll close it all the way up. Top back in the sample so I don't spill it. Over here with the rest. Now draw the section and the feed and the nib. Cap on. Make sure we leave it off. Now we'll see how the nib writes. Actually, I'll take my glove off for this, I think. Better control over the pen. The little bit extra pressure on that looks a lot better, I think. I'll try that again. That nib feels not too bad. We'll give it a test now. Maybe a tiny bit on the upstroke. We'll put it on some 12,000 micromesh and run some figure eights with it. Number 16. That writes very nicely. It'll take a little bit of getting used to because my current pen, the TWSBI Diamond 580, is a lot heavier and I've got to learn to press a little bit harder on that, but I do like the way that writes. That's what it looks like. That goes into my pen pouch now. Lovely.